If anybody would like the number of the medium, just talk to me after the show. She does good work. It's 2007, and I am anxiously awaiting news because I have just auditioned for my first off-Broadway show. The audition is for the role of the captain in a play called Widows, about a series of murders that happen in a small town by a river. And my phone rings, and it's the director of the play. And he says, "We have not cast you as the captain." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "But I have cast you in the play." I'm like, "Great, what's the part?" And he says, "Corpse in River." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me about this role." And he's like, "Well, here's what's going to happen. At the beginning of the show every night, we're going to put your head in a burlap sack. We're going to take your shirt off. We're going to make it look like you've been stabbed and beaten. You're going to lie under the stage for 2 hours. And at the end of the show, the widows will lift you out of the river and wail for 10 seconds, and then the lights go out." I was like, "I'll take it." Around this time I was working, my day job was as a cab driver, and I got in 2 accidents in the same day, and I totaled both cabs. And I don't know how much you know about cab driving, but it doesn't come with health insurance. So I was like, I think I need a new plan for my life. I need some stability. So I'm at this birthday party, and I'm telling a friend this, and she says, "Well, you should come work at the tech company that I work at." I'm like, "Tech company? That sounds pretty stable. What's the name of the tech company?" And she goes, "Limewire." Limewire seems to mean something to some of the folks in the house. If you are about my age, you probably used Limewire to download String Cheese Incident bootlegs, some of your more boutique forms of pornography. If you don't know what Limewire is, it was this massively illegal piece of software that you would put on your computer, and it would connect you to this decentralized network, and you could download basically anything that you can think of, and it would give your computer a tremendous number of viruses. I had used it many times, and I was like, "Limewire is like a company? That doesn't seem like a company." And she goes, "Oh, well, you clearly don't know about Limewire Pro." And I was like, "What is Limewire Pro?" And so she explains, the world is full of, I believe the technical term is suckers. And if you pay $34.95, you can buy the same version of Limewire as the free one and feel like your downloads are legal. Limewire makes no promises that it makes your downloads legal, but people just feel that way. Apparently enough that there's a whole company. She goes, "We are looking for a customer support representative." So I said, "I'll take it." So I go in for my first day of training at Limewire, and they say, "Great, Sam, welcome aboard. Couple things. First, we have just been sued by all of the major record labels. So, you are not allowed to download or use Limewire at all." I'm like, "Cool. What do I tell people, the customers who call seeking support?" And they're like, "You can say 3 things to them. The first thing you can say is, if you're having a technical issue, clear your cookies, re-download the software, start over. If anyone mentions any specific piece of content, you can say, 'I'm not familiar with that.' And if they ask for refunds, you can say, 'No refunds.'" So I'm like, "Cool. Let's get started." So I end up having very unpleasant phone conversations with people all day long. They usually go like this. Somebody calls and they say, "Hey man, I'm trying to download that Harry Potter." And I say, "I'm not familiar with that." To which one guy actually said, "Ooh, well, you really should be. It's a very inspiring story of a young boy who finds out that he's a wizard." But then this same guy said, like, well, I can't download it. What do I do? And I say, clear your cookies, re-download the software, start over. He's like, I did that already. Give me my money back. No refunds. Fuck you! Click. Rinse, repeat. That's my entire day. So another thing that is sort of weird about working at Limewire is that everybody else who works there is a software engineer. And I can't really talk to them because I'm not supposed to know how Limewire works. And their whole job is to talk about how to make Limewire work. So we don't really have anything to talk about. So I'm very excited one day when this woman named Vanessa starts working there. And Vanessa is working at this thing Limewire starts called the Limewire Store. This is a very bold gambit that Limewire tried, where they were like, oh, well, if we have a legitimate digital music store, we couldn't possibly be involved in illicit music theft, now could we? So Vanessa's job is to call the record labels, the same ones that have sued us, and say, hey, we would like to license your music and make it available for sale in the Limewire store. To which they all responded to her, fuck you, and then they would hang up the phone. So Vanessa and I had a lot to talk about. And because I am the sort of broken person who spent a lot of time trying to be a professional actor, at night, I would go and I would put the burlap sack on my head and I would lie under the stage for 2 hours and wait for the widows to hoist me out of the river. And I would actually think to myself, this Limewire thing is probably not for the long haul. But one of the agents that I invited to come see this show is probably going to be here tonight and is going to look at me and say, I bet the face that's hidden under that burlap sack would look great on a movie poster. So one day, I go into Limewire and they say, all right, all hands meeting. So we go to the all hands meeting and they say, the record labels have been granted an injunction. We are no longer able to make or sell our only product. So all of us kind of go, all right, what happens next? Confusingly, they fire most of the software engineers, but they retain the customer support department. Because it is explained to me, it is of even greater importance now than it was before that we don't give any refunds. So my job gets infinitely more fun. And the inbound volume of these calls is just out of control. People are furious because they were already getting swindled, but they didn't know they were getting swindled. And now they are aware that they're getting swindled and they are furious. And so I'm trying to deal with these calls, and Vanessa sends me this email in the middle of the day, and she says, oh, when the customers are mad, just send them this link. So I click on the link, and it's to this thing called Limewire Pirate Edition. And Limewire Pirate Edition is a functional version of Limewire that all the software engineers who got fired rage built and are now making available for free. So I write back to Vanessa and I say, oh, haha, I'm so proud of our little pirate castaways. The next day, my phone rings. I brace myself for fury. And I pick up the phone and I hear this voice say, hey, Sam, it's Jeff. Jeff is our in-house legal counsel. Can you come upstairs for a second? I'm like, okay. So I go up to Jeff's office, and he has on his computer, I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of those true crime documentaries where there's like an incriminating PDF, where there's a spotlight on some text in the middle of the screen. He has one of those on his laptop, and the text that is spotlighted is my email to Vanessa, which says, I'm so proud of our little pirate castaways. And he says, Sam, on the phone are the lawyers from Warner Brothers, Sony, EMI, a couple other places, and they're like, Sam, are you responsible for the manufacture and distribution of Limewire Pirate Edition? And I'm like, what? No. And they're like, and why should we believe you, Sam? And I'm like, well, actually, when I was hired, I was specifically instructed to neither download or use Limewire. And Jeff's looking at me like, stop talking. So the lawyers are like, well, I think we have everything we need. Thanks, Jeff. See you in court. The call ends. And I go to be a dead corpse in the river that night. And as I'm lying under the stage, I think to myself, Sam, I think you might need to pull yourself out of the river. So I find out that a lot of the software engineers who worked at Limewire have gotten jobs at Google, because Limewire, for all of its shady business practices, was actually a very sophisticated piece of technology. As mentioned previously, I didn't know anything about that technology, but I had also worked there. So on a whim, I submit an application to Google, and I get an interview. So I go in to this interview at Google, and I'm looking around, and there's all these people in Patagonia fleece. They got plates of watercress and quinoa. And I'm like, now this is a stable tech company. This is what I've been dreaming of. So I go into my interview, and the interviewer says to me, so you worked at Limewire? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, well, tell us about an interesting technical project that you worked on. And I'm like, fuck. And then I go, have you ever heard of Limewire Pirate Edition? I was actually very involved with Limewire Pirate Edition. And they're like, ooh, very cool. So then the guy says, why do you want to work at Google? And I take a deep breath, and I look over his shoulder, and I look out in the hallway as a guy in a Patagonia vest emerges from a room marked Employee Massage Lounge. And I look back at this interviewer, and I say, well, as we used to say at Limewire, sometimes you gotta clear your cookies, re-download your software, and start over. Thank you.
Sam Dingman, everyone.